Do you need a paddle bag? What type of paddle bag should you get? And what type of features should you look for when you're looking for your first paddle bag? These are the questions that we're going to think about today as I explain when I think you should get your first paddle bag. If you're anything like me, you want to spend all of your money on paddle court bookings and paddle lessons. But maybe you're also like me in that you're often arriving late to your matches or late to work because you're packing your paddle bag because you have a match in the evening and you can't find all your stuff. If this sounds like you, maybe it makes sense to spend some money on your first paddle bag. So today, first we're going to go over the different types of paddle bags that are out there. Then we're going to talk about the different features that are available in each paddle bag. And then I'll share a brief review of some of the paddle bags that I've used myself and things I liked and disliked about them. Okay, so in order of increasing size, first we have paddle racket cases, then we have paddle backpacks, and thirdly we have paddle racket bags, the large ones that are shaped basically like small tennis racket bags. Sometimes you're interested in just getting to the paddle court without being weighed down, and that's when you just want to throw your racket into something that you can strap onto your shoulder and get to the court with. This is when a paddle racket case comes into consideration. Paddle racket cases are small racket-shaped pieces of material with straps and small compartments for your valuables and maybe a can of balls that you can bring to the court when you just want to feel free, and anything you need to buy, you can just buy at the club. Here's an example from the Portuguese brand Volt Paddle. I like it a lot because it has all of these different cases. It's really well padded. It makes you feel like if I drop my racket within it, there would be no problems to the racket at all. I like these little compartments. I can remember that my keys are in this one, my wallet's in this one, and I can always keep a couple of overgrips in each of them. Here's another example from the Swedish brand Tutu. What I really like about this one is firstly the straps that allow you to wear it like a backpack. I often ride my bike to the paddle court, so it's nice to have it centered on my back and not being falling off of one shoulder, for example. It also comes with this ball can compartment, which I find really convenient. Then, that's all basically I need to play a match. Lastly, we have this small one from Osaka that comes with a slightly larger compartment, allows you to throw a couple of other things into the compartment as well. Also has an additional hook to allow you to strap it onto the fence. If your clubs are looking like mine, sometimes there's a lot of dirt on the ground. It's nice to keep your bag relatively clean. The second category of paddle bags are paddle backpacks or mochilas. So these are usually around 30 liters and they generally carry, in addition to your racket, maybe a can of balls or your shoes. Trying to fit all three things, the main three things of paddle can sometimes cram them in a little bit, and with the way that these are shaped, it will result in the items in the main compartment smushing up against the paddle racket face, which is not really good for the foam and for the durability of the racket. Wouldn't really cram things into it if you need to. If you need to bring a change of clothes, maybe you would have to sacrifice just wearing the shoes that you have or carrying the shoes outside of the racket by strapping them on somewhere. I've personally never used a paddle backpack, and this is the reason for it. I've always had issues with space in my backpack, so I wasn't able to find one that I thought could fit all the things that I needed to bring. That's why I got a large paddle racket bag. So basically, here in Berlin, things are quite cold in the winter and I needed a change of clothes, change of winter clothes, lots of clothes. So space limitation is a consideration for you, then maybe you'll be interested in paddle racket bags. So these usually range from 35 to 50 liters. They often have space for 2 different rackets, so you can have a backup in case something happens with your main racket. They often have a compartment in the middle that holds space for an additional shoe compartment to keep your stinky shoes away from the rest of your gear, as well as space for your change of clothes, your balls, and any additional stuff. I often carry, for example, 2 cans of balls with me. I carry the can of balls that I used in my last match, as well as a fresh unopened can of balls. And then in the warm-up session, we check the condition of the old balls, and we can either decide to use those or open up the new can of balls. So then we don't have to purchase the type of balls. Some of the clubs have different types of balls and you don't always want to play with what the club has. My first paddle racket bag is the Varlian Ambassadors bag. It looks pretty nice. I've got a lot of compliments on it. It looks like real leather from afar. It has some relatively comfortable straps. The straps do tend to open if you pack it quite full like I do. When you have your wet clothes, your wet towel, things can tend to overflow a little bit. The straps don't really deal with the weight so well. One note on the wet clothes, I often bring a dry bag, something like if you go to the beach or if you go swimming, You can put your wet stuff in there and that keeps the wet stuff separate to your other things. I totally recommend this. The next bag is by far the nicest paddle bag that I've ever seen. It's the Osaka Leather Bag. It's about 35 liters, made from real leather. It has canvas, totally like natural materials, bronze finishing. It's just beautiful. I've received all sorts of compliments on it. It doesn't look like a paddle bag. Actually, I was in the U-Bahn coming back from a match recently, and someone interrupted me to ask me about the bag. They were asking how it was made. They didn't understand. They were confused by the paddle shape, so we started talking about paddle, and it turns out that this person was actually a leather worker who really understood the quality that went into making this bag. It's quite expensive. It's around 500 euros, so like take that into consideration. But if you're looking for a really special gift for someone who appreciates like leather stuff, this bag is really well made. And maybe the best way to explain it is it's a paddle bag that doesn't really look like a paddle bag. If you're going to a nice restaurant after paddle, you can put this in and you don't have to feel like you're, I don't know, a stinky, sweaty guy. And it also has all of the features that you might want from a nice paddle bag, right? So it has this thermal insulation on the racket sides. It has a shoe compartment. It has small compartments for your wallet, for your keys. You know, you want to keep your keys away from your rackets so they don't scratch them up. Space for a water bottle. All of these features that you could ask to have a paddle bag, but in a way that looks really nice and clean. I've used it for about a year now, so I have seen the leather start to wear a little bit, which I think is done mostly in nice ways. Here's a shot of before and after I applied beeswax to it in order to treat the leather, because I felt that like it was getting kind of dry. The straps I think are well done, particularly where they go into the main compartment of the bag. The one issue I don't like so much about it is like regarding adjustability. The strap cinching could be improved. It kind of slips off. You're not able to tighten the strap cinching. It just like loosens up and goes to the loosest level. So what I do is I actually like tied it up here. So that is my workaround, but I think they could come up with a more elegant solution on that. I think they plan to do another version of this bag. One thing about this bag though is that it is leather. So it's a little bit heavy and it's a little bit hot. So in the summer, when you have this bag on your back and you're riding your bike to the court, your bag is gonna sweat by the time that you get to the court, basically. So what I've started to use in summer is actually the version of this bag that is made out of canvas, which I'm showing you here now. It's actually slightly larger. Based on the photos on the website, I expected it to be larger, but it's not overwhelming. It's about 37 liters. It has basically all the same features of the other bag. It has the insulated compartment. It's basically the same as the other bag with a tiny bit larger. It feels larger, I think, because the material is more flexible than the thick leather of the leather bag. I did not plan on using it so much, but I find the straps are so nice and the lightness of it to be really comfortable. I really like this bag a lot, and if you come to Berlin, you'll see me riding around with this bag on my back. Some strange features that I find really nice are the hook for me to put my keys. When I'm riding my bike, I hook my keys on this strap here. It solves the problem of being sweaty, and it also feels less cramped than the leather bag, which are two kind of like welcome changes. Definitely doesn't look as cool, and I wouldn't bring it to a fancy restaurant as I would bring the leather bag, but it's nice for, you know, in the morning when I go play a match and I'm coming back home afterwards. Okay, so I want to talk about 3 or 4 features of paddle bags that I think are worth considering when you purchase your bag. Okay, so the first feature I want to talk about is thermal insulation. This is highly marketed. I think it works a little bit, but I wouldn't say that it's something to protect your racket in all scenarios. Briefly, if you have a racket over 30 degrees, the foam will start to expand, and then when it cools down, it will be more brittle than it was before. So over time, this results in a foam that feels dead, like an old shoe. It's not something, if you leave your racket in the sun, in a minute, it's gonna be broken on Tuesday, but try not to leave it in the heat. Try not to leave it in the sun. Even if it's slightly shaded, it's much better than being directly in the sun. And if you can keep it in your bag, that's way better. These thermal compartments, I think, have slight of an impact. I'm gonna do a test at some point and compare the temperature on like a 30-degree day inside a thermal compartment and outside of a thermal compartment. So in short, I think it's worth keeping your bag in a thermal insulated compartment. If there's no bag that you can find that you like that doesn't have a compartment, don't decide to not get the bag for that reason. But I think it's worth considering. I think it's a valuable feature. Paddle rackets are too fragile, so this is one way that we can help them last for a little bit longer. Second feature I want to go over is compartments. I think this is really important as well. I lose track of things really easily, and the compartments help me understand when to expect things. If it's in my bag, I know where it's going to be, so then when the next time I play, I can take it out from there. So shoe compartments are super helpful. Enough space to carry a water bottle, a can of balls, and a change of clothes, a towel, shower shoes. Like, it winds up being a lot of space. So that's why I use the larger bags. As I mentioned before, I think it's also really valuable to have a dry bag. So spend 20 euros on a bag that you can close up so you can put your towel in there and anything else that's super wet. Keep it from getting your racket wet, keep it from getting your other stuff wet and sweaty, and stinking up the restaurant that you go to after the club. I think that's a really good and easy thing to do. Some bags will provide you with the change of shoes bag. I've never used that. I've never found that super valuable. I think a separate compartment is much more useful. It doesn't get all sandy in the rest. Small compartments should be used. You should always keep your keys in a separate compartment. Don't let them get scraped up. Not only for aesthetic reasons. If it gets smashed somehow, your keys could put a crack in there. You know, don't treat a racket like it's a piece of glass, because it's not, but they are fragile, and I think it's worth taking care of them because they cost a lot of money. I mentioned the strap hook for my keys. If you ride your bike and you need your keys to get in and out of your bike, I find it really useful. Maybe that's an edge use case, but for me, I find it really valuable. If you don't ride your bike to the matches, I highly recommend thinking about how you can do that, because it's a great warm-up. Paddle is a lower body sport, not an upper body sport, and like warming up your legs by a 20-minute ride to a club is a really great way to warm up. That's a segue. Last thing I want to talk about is the court fence hook. If you look at this bag again, you'll see that the floors of most of the paddle clubs that I go to are extremely dirty, very dusty. One was actually an old recycling Hof in German, which means it's like a recycling or trash dump. They've cleaned it up mostly, but there's still a bit of dust in there. And I have not, as you can tell, probably been using the court fence hook. I probably should. I find that it's kind of like annoying if someone were to put their bag there, because it feels like it's coming onto the court more than I want it to. But I don't know if that's just in my head. I'm gonna think about using this in the future. I think it would make my bag look less grungy, and maybe that's worth it. What do you think? I don't know. What do you think? One last thing on bags in general. There's a Knox bag I would look into if I were getting another bag today. I'll include a link in there. They have a backpack version as well as a larger bag version. I think those look quite nice. It's artificial leather, but it looks like real leather. And that's it, I think, about bags. I think the biggest reason to get a bag is, yes, maybe to protect your racket. Yes, maybe to keep your shoes a place, but I think the biggest reason is to save yourself time when you're going to your next match, right? So knowing where your stuff is, keeping all your stuff in one place, packing your stuff whenever your clothes has been washed and just putting it in there so you don't have to think about it when you go up for work in the morning. Whatever you can do to make your life easier and make playing paddle easier, whatever that means for you. But for me, getting a bag where I can keep my stuff organized was a big kind of unlock moment. And so, yeah, it's 50, 100 euros that you do not necessarily want to spend, because like, it's not fun to spend money on this. But I think maybe it will be better than you expect. So that's my consideration. I like having a bag. It helps organize my life. Think about it. I was using my work bag before, but it just got mixed up because I was always moving stuff around, moving stuff out, putting it on my thing, and then losing track of where it was. That was an unusual video. I'm going to be doing some more videos soon with some new rackets. Our newsletter is going every week on Friday, which has received a little bit more attention than YouTube recently. But send a video to a friend who is always late because he blames it on traffic. He probably just needs to get a racket bag. What do you think? All right. Thank you so much. Have a great one.